All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another edition of Talking Buffalo, part of the Blue Wire Network. I am your host, Patrick Moran. Thank you, as always, for locking in, whether it's the audio side, the video side. I appreciate you all. Today is Tuesday when this drops anyway, July 11th. Been a minute since I've actually had an episode. Took last week off, kind of recharged the batteries a little bit. Haven't talked Sabres since the draft and free agency started. Was waiting for the right guest. And of course, I do have him today. It's been a minute since he's been on this podcast, though. Good friend of this podcast, friend of mine, writer, sports media personality, Joe Yerdon, man. What's going on, dude? How you doing?
Doing good, man. Yeah, it's been a little bit, but I'll take the heat for some of that. Things have been a little bit busy, plus
Sure.
hopping in the car, driving to and from Nashville with a couple
Sure.
of other pals here. So yeah, it's hockey season's funny because it goes from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour at the flip of a switch, and then it goes right back to 0.
Yeah. We're kind of at that 0, but today
Yeah.
we're going to spend a little bit of time because, again, on this show, at least anyway, I haven't talked much hockey. You know what it is, Joe, with this podcast, say as opposed to Maintenance Day that you do alongside Lance Lazowski of the Buffalo News. You're in hockey mode all the time. And I feel like most of the people who listen to you or who subscribe to your noted hockey, they're hockey fans. And there's a lot of hockey fans, don't get me wrong, who are listening to this, but I still feel like the majority are Buffalo Bills fans.
Yeah.
And some fans are fans of both teams, very much so. But I feel like there's a lot of hardcore Bills fans who are more casual Sabre fans who might hear the names a little bit that are, when the Sabres sign somebody or the draft, again, both of which we'll talk about here in just a few, but they don't really know much about these players at all. So that's why I like having someone like you on who could kind of, it's like, talk to me about this guy or this kid like we're in fifth grade. You know what I mean? That's the casual Sabres fan, which, to be fair, to some extent, at least anyway, I am as well. But anyway, it is definitely good to have you back on the podcast. You've been really busy. Like I said, the season, covering the season, free agency, the draft, also following the Rochester Amherst, who went pretty deep in the playoffs. So it's been a while, man. You've been busy. Actually, since the end of May, since I had you on this podcast last, we did a Kyle Okposo appreciation episode, and
Right. Yeah.
that was fun. Like I said, you've been a busy man, been killing it too, by the way, been crushing it. I've been enjoying Noted Hockey. I've been enjoying your work on Bleacher Report, enjoying the podcast, enjoying your radio hits. In fact, you just did one in Rochester before you jumped on for this taping. So it's good. Like I said, good to have you and see you and listen to you again on this podcast. I took a week off. I didn't do a show last week, a holiday week. You haven't really had much of an opportunity to take any break. Now you're going to get a little bit more downtime for a little bit anyway. You know this, Joe, from writing and doing hits and podcasting and all this other stuff. It's good sometimes to just take a couple days or maybe even a week and just kind of recharge a little bit. And kind of that's where I was last week.
I completely understand the need to kind of step back for a little bit, breathe, just kind of let it, because it can we're content providers, I guess. That's weird. It's a weird way to put it, I guess. But it's a lot of it is kind of nonstop, because if you're not doing something actively, like if you're not podcasting or doing a video or whatever, you're thinking about like, okay, what am I going to do next?
Right.
And writing wise, I mean, it's the same thing for writing. It's like, okay, well, what am I going to do now? Because now I'm looking at the calendar and it's July 10th and I'm like, all right, I got a couple months to kill here. So like, what the heck am I going to do? So, cause you can stop. You can, and I think people understand if you, especially for us, like, once the Darlene extension gets announced, it's kind of like, all right, everybody, we'll see you in September. That's basically what it's going to end up being like. But sometimes you just need to breathe for a little bit. And like the Amherst season going as long as it did, which is a good thing. Like that's a great thing. And then that going right into like the start of the Stanley Cup final. So I was doing a ton of stuff for Bleacher Report for that, and then that got over and it was like, okay, we've got a week, maybe, week and a half to prepare for the draft in Nashville. And like, that was a whole thing of like, arranging how we're gonna do the drive, how we're gonna, where we're staying, or the whole.
Sure.
So, and then then you do the draft. Like you're basically losing like 2 days total when you drive to Nashville, like because you can do it in one day. It's 11 hours, but like it's a shitty 11 hours. Like it's all like all north to south of Ohio, and then you're cutting through Kentucky and into Tennessee. So
Yeah.
it's a lot, but yeah, usually it's a nonstop business, man. But it's when you tell everybody like, hey, give me a week, we'll be back, and then I think most people understand.
Yeah, they do. And look, there's it's funny, by the way, side story. We haven't done, look, you've been on this show, God, I don't even, dozens and dozens and dozens of times since
Mhm.
we last, remember we used to do our starting five drafts, which
Oh
was
yeah.
so much fun. To this very day, at least once a week, somebody will say something to me when I put some kind of power ranking up or something, they will refer to our draft. And usually it's about you kicking my ass in them because I mean, you did give me a lot of ass whoopings
Did.
in that draft. But of all the segments I've done, I swear to God, dude, to this day, that is probably still one that resonates the most with regular listeners and watchers of this show. It's pretty amazing. And there's no Joe, it's everybody's different. Every mindset is different. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way. No, I know some people, their school of thought is whether when it comes to content, whether it's podcasting or vidcasting or writing or whatever it may be,
Hmm.
they preach consistency. Holidays, never take time off and just constantly go. Even you got to push yourself through. And then and I get that. I feel like taking a break every now and then is a little bit healthy for everybody. It's certainly healthy for me as the content provider. It's healthy maybe if you start forcing stuff and doing things just to do them, I think you lose a little bit of that quality, that
Yeah.
goes into a show. Or
Mhm.
you would know this, when it goes
Yep.
into when you're writing an article, it's like, oh, I got to get one out. I got to do one just to do one. I'm not really feeling this, but I'm going to put it out anyway.
Right.
I feel like fans kind of see through that, So sometimes I think it's just it's good to take that break, man, recharge a little
Yeah.
bit.
That's kind of the mindset that I always have with things, because I'll feel bad about like not, pumping something out like constantly, just giving something for everybody to read like once a day. And then I'm thinking like, well, I can do that, but how good is that going to be if I'm, 5 days in a row and just put something out there just to put it out?
Right.
How good is it going to be?
Sure.
Like it's easy to sit back and, if you're somebody that doesn't do it, easy to sit back and be like, well, I don't see what the big deal is. Why don't you just do it? That's your job, idiot. Like,
Right.
I get it. But like, apply it to your own job. How many, do you go in and do your own job, 100% balls to the wall every time? No,
Mhm.
nobody does that. So, sometimes you just want the quality of what you're doing to stand out more than
Sure.
it is just volume. I mean, it's hard though, because like if you go away for like, for just even a little bit of time, people just kind of you fall out of
Yes.
view, and people forget about you a little bit,
Sure.
which I got to learn about that for when I came busting back onto the scene this season. So
Sure.
it stinks, but like sometimes for me it was life got in the way, and you know other things, but but like once you get back into it, it's like, oh right, okay, yeah, this is the way it goes. But I mean, like this whole year, man, it felt like I was a little bit uncomfortable in my own skin a little bit, because I was just like, man, I'm back doing this. Then it's like, wow, am I really doing this? Like you're just doing like having that
Right.
conversation every day, and then things being different with the team and everything. Like it's a huge change, and trust me when I say this, it's been a huge positive change
Sure.
as far as covering the team goes. It's been a miraculous change as far as I'm concerned, um, but it's still like, you spend so many years, and then you got, you're like basically out of it for a year and a half, kind of,
Yeah.
but you spend so many years in like a kind of not helpful situation, kind of like you're swimming upstream all the time. And now it's kind of like,
Right.
oh no, it doesn't have to be that way. We're getting to see how good it can be on the other side. It's
Well,
nice.
as somebody, who's someone I consider a really good friend over the past handful of years, and somebody, who was doing a lot, and then things fell off for you, and it was a shitty time, and then to
Mhm.
come back this year and do what you're doing now, it's been a lot of, forget the professional side, and the personal side, it's really cool for me to see you thriving again. like this. So that's really cool. And look, we're going to talk some Sabres, talk a little bit of Bills today. I got a couple fun things that I want to get into. Before that, though, look, I'd be remiss, real quick, Joe. I got to
Mhm.
say, I don't know how much you follow um Twitter lately. Again, I know how busy you've been, and this is not
Mhm.
really anything to do with hockey. This is on more the Bills side, but an 8-year-old kid, Eddie Merrick, who's just he was born with a heart defect, and he's been fighting his whole life. Eddie's infantry, kid 8 years old, lost his life last week. Bills Mafia just, there's a lot of things that we could criticize about fans and Twitter and social media stuff
Mhm.
like that, dude. But I just want to say real quick, man, and then we'll move on. This will be a fun show. It's not gonna be no somber
Yeah.
episode today. I didn't get Joe on after all this time to be somber for the next hour or so. But I just want to say, man, it was for people, and I know a lot of people who are watching and listening do know who this kid is through social media primarily. Just devastating, heartbreaking, 8 years old. His father, Nick, somebody that I befriended over the last couple of years on Twitter, very open, about the journey, constantly putting up photos and videos of this young, brave kid. And to see somebody lose their life at freaking 8 years old, man. It's a tough pill to swallow. Big Bills fan. Just I don't know, man. Don't really have a lot to say about it. Again, it's just my thoughts and my prayers go out to the this kid and to his father and to family, man. Sucks. You see this shit happen, Joe.
Mhm.
Let me ask you this. Because we've since the birth of social media, um, we've all lost somebody close to us, you know, in your case, obviously, you lost a parent, over the past year or so. Everybody handles things differently. There's no right or wrong way to grieve. People grieve how they grieve. One thing, and I'm sure you didn't see this, well, I'm not sure, but pretty sure you didn't. Again, the father just throwing up pictures and videos, and that's how he wants to remember his son. 99.5% of people are loving it. Keep them coming, man. Whatever's going to help you feel better. One piece of shit, I'm not going to even mention the guy's name, but one guy pretty much said, um, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but get off Twitter. Stop putting up, this is not how you mourn your loss. Just fucking a shitty way to treat somebody who's going through a hard time. We all go through things, Joe. You did. I have. There's no right or wrong way to grieve, right, man? People are just gonna do things the way it makes them cope, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You handle it the way, I mean, it's not something you're ever ready for. Um, and you don't know really what to do. Like you're just kind of lost.
Sure.
I know, for me, I still struggle with it. Like it's doesn't go away. It's not something that leaves you, especially it's somebody close to you like that. It's really difficult, and I think it's very hard to fall into bad ways when you're feeling that way because it's depression times a zillion. And it hits you
Right.
like a truck all at once, and you don't like trying to get a handle on that is so hard. It's so hard, and it's not really something you can do
Right.
by yourself. I mean, everybody tries to just kind of deal with it on their own, because, yeah, well, I mean, I know some people handle it very outwardly. Some people handle it, they keep to themselves. That's me. I basically shut it down for
Yeah.
I don't even know how long. Like it was
I
just way
remember.
too long. So and like if you asked me to remember anything that was going on at that time, I no friggin' idea. No,
Right.
no clue. You could have told me I was, I did anything. I'd be like, maybe. I don't know. Could have
Yeah.
happened.
I know.
I don't know, dude. Like it's all like a mental blackout because you're just, you're in such a bad way and you feel so upset. I'm using upset in the general term because people handle it by being sad or being mad or whatever.
Right.
Um, but I mean, to be, I mean, listen, Twitter's an awful place. It's an awful, awful place where people just go on and say whatever the hell they want to say, and they don't
And
care.
they get seen. That's the part,
Right.
Joe. They get
Yeah.
seen. They say something awful and they get seen, and attention gets brought to it like I just did, like an idiot.
Mhm.
But
It's just it's so easy to just be that guy and just show up and be like, oh, knock it off, dude. What's the big deal? Like, well, the big deal is I lost somebody. That's the
yeah,
big deal. And go fuck yourself. Like
right.
that's the only answer you need to give to somebody like that, because that's, whether it's some like kind of morbid joke or they're actually totally serious about saying something like that. That's an awful person that doesn't understand life. So let them go be miserable somewhere else, and get them out of your mentions, get them out of your timeline, block them, just, tell them to go away. Like, that's
Yeah.
don't tell them to go away, but just make them go away, because there's no need to see and put up with people that say things like that. It's just, that's awful.
It is. It's terrible. But you know what, Joe, is rather than spend time and highlight one asshole, in this case, and I agree with you a lot, man. Twitter could be such a, not just Twitter, all social media could just
Yeah.
be such a cesspool at times. But
Mhm.
I want to say with this kid, he felt love from fans, from Bills fans. They were like in the midst, because he's been sick for a long time, but this really progressed quickly and
Mhm.
ultimately, sadly, he passed away. But Bills fans, they raised $20,000 doing some kind of raffles, and players are giving away jerseys and stuff like that. Daryl Talley, they were having a raffle. They did have a raffle where Daryl Talley and his wife Janine were going to FaceTime the winner. You know what I mean? There was just all
Nice.
kinds of little things going on to raffle. So just wanted to give a shout out. Let his father, who I know listens to this podcast. I don't know if he is right now, but he listens to the show. He's told me that many times. A lot of people are thinking of him and sending love to him and his entire family. But anyway, all right, let's move on. Let's get into a happier place today, man. Again, it's good to have you back on the show. You've
Tough
been
to segue
busy.
out of that one, Pat. I'm not gonna
It
lie.
is. There is no easy segue, but I want to switch gears and talk about things on a little more happier tone here. This weekend, now I didn't go, so you're gonna have to tell me a little bit about it.
Okay.
Taste of Buffalo was this weekend. I
Mhm.
know you were there. We talked a little bit yesterday before
Yeah.
we're taping here today. You told me about some wings too that I was like, well, I never had
Yeah.
them. And you said they were pretty good, man. So what's up? Well, how was Taste of Buffalo? What wings you talking about?
Well, I'll be honest. I reached out to you because I thought the place that had a tent there and they were offering wings was the place that is like the worst ranked on your list,
Yes.
because the name was close enough, and
Close.
I'm so brain broken from life that I just couldn't I was like, is that the place Pat hates? And I was telling my buddy. Tell my buddy Justin, I was like, I think that's the place Pat hates. I was like, if these are as bad as he says, I was like, we got to spend some tickets on this, because I gotta know. I mean, if I'm spending like 4 tickets for garbage ass wings, I don't care. Fine, take them. I want that experience. Turns out it was not the same place.
No, it was not,
It was
because
not the
trust
place.
me. What was
So
it?
it was well, the place was the good place is the Days Park Tavern. Now you can understand why I got confused, because the place Pat hates is the Glen Park Tavern.
Yeah. I hate their wings. Don't hate the place. Don't hate their roast beef on weck.
Right.
Wings are trash.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Days
I'll
Park Inn.
put a big vote in for the Days Park Tavern though. Really good. They had a what the hell was it? It was like a brisket burger or something like that, or it was like a brisket, like something or other. It was looked incredible.
Mhm.
But they had wings, and they had lemon garlic parmesan wings was their offering, and I was like, well, in my mind thinking like, well, if these are bad, like at least they'll taste good. Dude, this place cooks them perfect. Like
Yeah.
they're crispy. I mean, lemon pepper garlic's its own its own flavor. So like you're getting just a face full of garlic and parmesan in your mouth, and it's really good. They're really good wings, and I was kind of caught off guard, because I was like, if this is the place Pat hates, he's nuts. Like if these are the wings he says are the worst in the city, I'm like, what is wrong? Like, did they spit in his food? Like what the hell happened? It's not the same place though. So full votes for the Days Park Tavern, because really good wings, and the rest of the food looked dynamite, looked absolutely great. So It's the classic taste of Buffalo thing where it's like, oh, what the hell's this place? Never heard of it. And you have something, you're like, all right, we're going. We gotta go.
And you found a new place that you would not have found were it not
Right.
for Taste of Buffalo. That's what I love about those. Now, again, I didn't get a chance to make it up there or downtown, I should say, this year, but
Mhm.
that's the best when you go and you discover something that you didn't know. And look, food, wings, it's also
Right.
subjective, man. There's so many places where I think these places suck and people are like, oh, I really like these wings. Or then there's other places like I swear to you, Sunny Reds is probably what top 5 wing place for me. And then some people are like, yeah, they're all right. You know what I mean? It goes both ways. But Days Park Tavern, I had to look it up. I'm looking it up right now as you were
Mhm.
talking about it. It's on Allen Street. Never, I'm not gonna lie to you, dude. I mean, I'm kind of out of
It's
the
right in
loop
my
when it comes to the
neighborhood, man.
downtown
Like,
scene, Allentown scene.
that's
I, I
that
gotta try
bothers me.
it.
It's right in my neighborhood. I haven't been there to eat. That's
Yeah.
terrible. That's a bad job by me.
Well, I'm gonna have to try them now. They're gonna be on my list. I do my like twice a year. I do like my wings rankings, and I
Mhm.
got to get those in before the summer ends because I do a summer fall rankings, and I've never had them. But now that you're
Yeah.
talking about them, at least
So
got to just try them.
I did have another like I trust I wasn't going to every booth and be like, you got wings? I gotta have some wings. Like, I wasn't doing that. But there's I like to hit a Caribbean place because I'm and it's I get the irony. No to jerk. I love jerk chicken. Like I love it.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things. Make it spicy, great. Make it kind of sweet, great. Like everything about it's so good. And there was a place called Caribbean Flava, which I think might be a food truck,
Hmm.
maybe. But they were offering jerk wings, and I was like, all right, let's go. And I think it was 10 tickets, so that's like $6. And they gave you like what, 6 wings, 5, 6 wings, something like that. These things were like fall off the bone wings. Like they weren't crispy. They were not crispy at all. So maybe it might not be up your alley. I don't think they're supposed to be like wings either. Like these were pretty big.
Right.
Um, Dynamite, absolutely dynamite stuff. I was, but again, being a jerk and liking jerk is, just kind of, weird irony because it is what it is. But love the flavor of them. The wings were good, just enough, little bit of kick of spice in there. Like it was nice. So yeah, so that stuck out for me. I'm trying to think of some of the other places.
How's the crowd down there over the weekend?
I went on Sunday and it was cloudy for like the first part of the
Yeah.
afternoon. So I think people might have been a little spooked out thinking it was going to rain, which
Mhm.
I imagine being down there when it's raining is not a good time.
Right.
Um, but it picked up a little bit as the day went on and the clouds went away and the sun came out. So people started turning out and whatnot. It was a good enough crowd where I wasn't like, I got to get out of here. Like that when there's so many people and you can't move and it's, everybody's bumping into you. Like, I hate that stuff. I hate it so much.
Me
And
too.
when it's like that, I'm like, every time I grab food, I just like go duck behind the tent and be like, I'm going to eat on the sidewalk. Get me out of this mess. Um, but it wasn't that bad. And I'll tell you this, there was a couple places that had super long lines. They were machines. The Dirty Bird food truck, holy cow, dude. They had chicken and waffle on a stick, which
Hmm.
signed me up, dude. Like
Yeah.
all in. And it was great. These folks, man, I love them. That's one of my favorite food trucks in the city. They were cranking it like crazy. Just boom. They're like, have your tickets ready, be ready to go because we're moving. And because like the line was going like all the way down to like Chippewa. It was nuts because you're seeing the line. You're like, I ain't getting in that. You were in it for maybe a minute, 2 minutes tops.
Yeah,
And
that's
because they were
awesome.
just blowing right through. And there was a bakery that was right across from it. They were doing like cheesecake, like a bunch of different cheesecakes and like giving you like a whole ass slice of cheesecake. And I was like, oh, well, and that line was also long and went a little slower, but like, dude, these cheesecakes look incredible. I mean, just drop dead great cheesecake looking like it was awesome. This is where me not paying attention to like what place it is, unless I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, what's this? Is bad. I didn't have the cheesecake, my friends did, but like I was looking at that, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that's something you could get here. Like you're just getting a whole friggin' piece. It was awesome.
I wanted to go. I just didn't have a chance. I did something else on Sunday as well. To your point, I hate the busy crowds. I'm a beer tent guy like during lawn fate season, but I
Mhm.
won't go to the beer tents during peak hours or peak nights because it's just absolutely ridiculous. Saturday, I went to a close friend had a 50th birthday party, which by the way turned into a surprise wedding vow renewal,
Oh,
which was actually really cool, man. I got to admit
nice.
that. Shout out to this group. That was a lot of fun. Sunday, so while you were at Taste of Buffalo, I was at Queen of Heaven in West Seneca.
What
And
is that? Because I've heard of it. I have no idea what it is.
it's a carnival. It's a lawn.
Oh,
It's the West Seneca. Basically, it's a lawn fete. It's basically the neighborhood carnival.
oh.
Standard food, nothing like you go to Taste of Buffalo. You're going to get some exquisite food, really cool things to try. This is very standard. You know, all the same stands you'll see like at Dairy County Fair for the most part. All the basic ones. Some rides, which by the way, kind of connected into. So I spent the day in the beer tent, of course, and it was I like the Sunday pro tip. Go to a lawn fete or a beer tent on a Sunday if they have it because the crowd's so much less. You know, there's still music, but not like the Tragically Hip or Hit and Run. So it's not shoulder to shoulder. You don't got to wait 45 minutes to go to the freaking bathroom. Anyway, was at the beer tent for the majority of the day. I have an insane fear of heights, and I got talked into going on 2 rides, and I'm fucking was shitting myself. One of them was just people are gonna laugh, the Ferris wheel. And it's not like a carnival Ferris wheel. It's not like the Darien Lake Ferris wheel.
Yeah,
it's not even that high.
It doesn't feel very secure either.
No, it's scary, man. They look like bent and shit. So
Mhm.
I was freaking out a little bit, but you know, I get a couple enough beers in me, and my friends are gonna buy tickets. I'm gonna go on the ride with them. And I went on a tilt-a-whirl too, which it took me like 2 hours to not be dizzy. As shit was nuts. One little cool thing about the Queen of Heaven. Brian Gable's from West Seneca, former Bills coordinator, New York Giants head coach. And he was there Sunday. And I'm telling you, man, I was standing maybe 7 feet away from him for probably a good 45 minutes, at least, maybe even longer. Dude, nobody came up and bothered him.
Huh.
Nobody bothered him.
Were people like pointing and being like, there's Brett, there's Table, look.
Maybe a little bit, but because this is what I'm saying, because this is West Seneca where he's from, he just gets treated like one of their own, not rock star status by any means. You know, people were just, he was with his wife and his and family members,
Sure.
you know, close people. People just let him be, man. I mean, a couple of people will take a picture here and there because he goes there literally every day, all 3 days for Queen of Heaven. He hangs out. He's a West Seneca dude through and through, man. So he's there for the whole weekend. But dude, he's such a super nice guy, man. He could just tell. I mean, again, I mean, I've had interactions with him before. I didn't talk to him yesterday again. It's with his family, man. Don't bother the guy. I'm not gonna sit there and want to ask him questions or tell him that, you know, I have a podcast or blah, 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 blah. I get pictures, any of that shit. Just leave the dude alone. Super cool dude, man. If your Detroit Lions can't win the NFC this year, I'd be pretty pumped if it would be the New York Giants that did. Brian Dable, super cool.
I think you're going to be a Giants fan then, Pat.
Yeah.
Listen, you're not going to be able to talk me into they're going to be one of the best teams in the NFC. You're just not going to. It's impossible for me to accept it. Impossible. I cannot wrap I'm waiting for Jordan Love to instantly become a top 3 quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
That's what I'm waiting for it to happen because it's already happened once.
I think the Packers are more likely to be a team competing for a top 5 pick next year than
I hope so.
Than they're going to be anything else.
Hopefully they blow that pick too.
All right, let's take a real quick break. Come back. We're actually going to talk a little bit of football and especially some Sabres hockey. So be right back. All right, I'm back with Joe Yerdon. And by the way, go to notedhockey.com if you haven't already. $5 per month, man, $50 per year. Even during the offseason, Joe will find some good stuff to write about it. Of course, lots to be excited about with the Sabres when the season cranks up soon enough. So get on board with that right now. Like I said, I mean, this was a couple weeks ago now, but I haven't talked about it on this show. I haven't had a hockey guy on until you right now. So I guess let me start here, man. Let's talk about the draft and primarily Zach Benson. And again, I did hear of this name. I probably knew about 5 or 6 names before the draft. Don't know a lot about the player, obviously. I'm going to ask you about that here in just a second. But he was one of the guys, a handful of guys that I had seen going in mocks, probably top 5 to 8 in most mocks, I would say. Falls of the Sabres at 13. Seems to be some legitimate surprise here that he fell to the Sabres? What are your thoughts on him going to Buffalo at 13 and him as a player? Let's start right there.
It was very surprising. And sometimes these things happen in the draft just because weird stuff happens. It's funny how like the major league drafts can mimic fantasy drafts so easily because everybody, I mean, everybody's got their ideas, they got their boards, they got everything ranked out, and then somebody makes a pick a little bit out of the norm ahead of you. Then it's like, oh, wait a minute, that team grabbed a defenseman. I'm talking about Montreal. Like Montreal grabs Reinbacher, and then suddenly it's like, oh, and then the Coyotes grab the defenseman right after him, and it's like, okay, well, that's weird because it's not a defense draft by any means. Now there are some good guys at the top end of it, and they did go early, but they probably went a little bit earlier than I think just about everybody thought they were gonna go. I mean, a lot of mocks did. I think maybe most of the mocks, I didn't see a defenseman go until maybe even the Sabres. Like the Sabres at 13 were like one of the teams where it's like, maybe they might take a guy.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody else ahead of him, but like the forward class is so good. There's so many good players in this class, and Benson being the guy falling to Buffalo is wild because they watched him a ton. Why? He's Matt Savoy's teammate. They know all about him. They've been watching him for 2 years now. So they know everything inside out and backwards about him because like they just everybody's watching Savoy and they're like, wait a minute, who's his teammate of his? This guy's incredible. It's a pick where I think everybody kind of looked around and said, how the hell did that guy get there? Like, how does that guy fall that far down the board? Like what caused that to happen? And I remember asking Adams after, I think it was after the first, it was after round one. We're speaking to him at the end of the day, and I asked him, I go, what were you thinking when you started seeing a run on defensemen go? And he just kind of like, he was kind of surprised. He was like, well, he's like, well, we've got our board. He's been saying the same thing all the time. He's like, well, we've got our board. We stick to it. I'm like, there's no way you thought a guy like that was going to be available at 13 because the whole time you're thinking like, well, he's at this spot on our board, wherever it was. Obviously it was somewhere pretty good, but wherever he is, you're thinking like somebody's going to grab him. Like, it's just, we got 12 teams ahead of us. Somebody's going to snag him, and that's going to be that. Nope. And the funny thing with him, and some of it might be, recency, like new hotness type thing. A lot of people who think that he might be better than Savoy, that he's actually a lot better than Savoy is. And his skill set, that by the time he's ready for the NHL, and even, some people are just like, oh, you could go this year. And I'm like, well, he ain't going this year. Like, that's just, they're not going to do that.
Right.
Unless he's so good at training camp that it's just kind of like, well, all right, well, he's got to go. Like, we got to get a look at him. We got to play him. I find that I don't think that's going to happen, but I mean, they're open to anything. That's the good thing about the Sabres now. They're not shutting people down before they're even stepping on the ice. They're just kind of like, well, hey, if a guy forces his way into it, then we're good. Like, cool. But there's a lot of talent there, and we watched him during development camp, and you can't glean a lot from development camp. It's like 3 practice days and then the 3-on-3 tournament, which is basically the guys trying to, one up each other with highlight moves and, trying to do cool shit, which I always respect. But also trying to win games, which, good. There were some things I noticed about Benson in that day as the day wore down and like they were getting into like the games where it's like, okay, we could actually win this thing now. He just went from like kind of like, all right, it's highlight time, to being like, oh no, we're gonna win now. Like he went into this spot where he was harassing Ryan Johnson, again, first round pick from a few years ago, defenseman. He just absolutely harassed the hell out of Johnson and stole the puck from him, and it turned into like the go ahead goal, and they're in the game against them, and like it was like the playoff round. And it's kind of like, oh, Well, Johnson's a pretty good defender. What and Benson just got him all turned around and tied him up in knots and took the puck away, and then made a tape to tape pass from basically the side, the half wall across the ice to a guy that's by himself. Like, okay, and again, it's a 3-on-3 tournament. Take it for what it is. Some guys look really good because they've been playing in a pro league, Novikov, and some guys are just better than others. Like, that's just the way it is. But I don't know, man. He's, the size thing kind of put me off. He also looks like he's 13. Like, everything about it, I'm just kind of like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know.
Crazy, these hockey players, how young they look, Joe. These first rounders.
It just,
well, they are.
Well, yeah. I mean, they are young. I mean, Connor Bedard's still 17. He turns 18 soon. But like, it's nuts. It's so I hate it. I hate that the Matthew McConaughey line from Dazed and Confused applies, but not in the creepy weird way. It's just, I keep getting older. They keep being 18 coming into the draft, and I'm like, damn it! Like,
I get older. They say
like their parents are my age now, and I'm like, oh, Jesus.
Oh, that's a great.
So
line.
it's but I mean, he's good, man. He's really good, and I'm gonna be very curious to see what he looks like at training camp, because he'll be there. Usually guys in his spot are there for like a week and then out they go. But I don't know. We might see him in a couple of preseason games because they're playing 5 games in a week.
Right.
The preseason when it starts up. And like, you're going to have a different lineup like every night that week of just guys that are in camp. They won't do any cuts until like that week's over. So it's going to be really interesting because they got a lot of eyes to get on. And I don't know, man. There's a lot there, and it's very impressive.
I don't obviously know these prospects at all. So going into the draft, I would bookmark on the internet. I had a little folder, like about at least 8 or 9 different mock drafts, other various people's mock drafts. And I went after the Sabres made their pick, and not one of them had him going as late as 13. None of them. Like, it was as high as 5 or 6, I think, and no lower than 10. Like, he was a top 10 pick in pretty much every single mock that I looked at. To your point, they're so young. Not just him, all these kids that get drafted, especially in hockey. And you look at somebody like, say, him, or on a bigger stage, Connor Bedard, what's his name? Zach's going to have the opportunity, very likely, to develop with the Sabres. As good as he is, as big of a prospect as he is, there's no rush to get him on the ice. Night one as a rookie. He's going to go through his progress, and he's going to develop into, hopefully, a great player. You take a guy like Bedard, what is he? He's 17, right?
So he's still 17. He turns, when the hell does he turn 18? Maybe beginning of September. I don't know. It's a weird birthday thing. I don't know.
Weight of the world. The rebuild of the Chicago Blackhawks is going to be on his shoulder. Just like in the NBA when LeBron came into the league, with Cleveland. Like, the weight of Cleveland and that organization and that city, to some extent, was kind of on him. And you see these guys. One thing, Joe, if I watch Zach Benson highlights or Connor Bedard highlights on the ice, and they got their uniform on, they look a little bit bigger. These kids are special, and they're playing against kids their age or whatever. That's one thing. You see them, like, say, in Nashville, when you're up there and he's on the podium and you're, within an earshot of him, and these kids look so goddamn small. And then you start thinking they're so young, and how much expectation and weight get put on their shoulders, man. It's crazy that when I look at things from that point of view, it's just nuts to me.
Yeah, I just had to look up Bedard's birthday just to make sure, because I've been scanning through different stuff lately, and I was like, there's somebody whose birthday is like in October, and it's like, no, that's Fantilli. Bedard's birthday is like a week from today. So he turns 18 in the middle of July. So like,
no difference. 17, 18.
Right. He's a teenager that's going to be going in an NHL camp, and it's like, all right, buddy, it's up to you. Like, get her done. If guys that are in this spot like him and McDavid and Crosby, like all these guys that come out that are, they've been, had exceptional status since they were 15 years old, like all this stuff, they know what they're getting into, and they're such pros at it now that it's a big deal. Like, it's a big deal, but like they're kind of ready for it. Depending on the situation. I mean, he's going to have some good players to work with there, like some good role model type guys in Chicago, but it is a lot. But man, these guys have been coached up to be in this spot for years now.
Still takes a level of maturity that
Oh yeah.
most, beyond the
Mhm.
physical talent that these top tier kids prospects have, it also takes a incredible commitment to getting mature beyond your
Mhm.
years to succeed. Most of us high school kids only give a shit about drinking and skipping school and shit like that. And this kid, again, he's going to have the weight of an organization on him. All right, so back to the Sabres. Again, we're not going to go. I'm not going to sit here and ask you questions about every single draft prospect. We'll be here all day. But I do want to ask you about the second pick, Anton Wahlberg.
Mhm.
A guy again that I know nothing about, bigger guy, certainly
Yep.
bigger than Zach Benson. Tell us a little bit about him because he's another guy that since the draft I've watched and read and listened to you and Chris Baker and Lance and a lot of people say Mike talk a lot of positive things about this prospect. So tell fans a little bit about Wahlberg.
He's he's very interesting because there's a lot of skill there. Like there's a lot of ability, and he's already, again, we are talking about age here. Like he just turned 18 a week ago. Oh God. Uh, but
Crazy.
he's 6'3",
Yeah.
195 already. Like at 17. Like, Jesus, okay. But I mean, there's a lot of skill there. There's a lot of ability. And like when you're that big, like you're gonna play a kind of a big man's game. And he's playing center right now in Sweden, but it sounded like from Jerry Fortin after the draft was done that they kind of see Forsberg being a winger just because the the size thing and how the smaller ice surface in the NHL, and he might be able to, his skills might lend itself better to being a winger. So whatever, it's fine. You could have 12 centers on your team. They all know how to play wing. It's totally fine.
Sure.
Um, the fun part with guys that come out of Europe is that you'll look up the stats and be like, that's not really impressive. Like, I don't see what the big deal is with this guy. When you look at it and you see he had 4 points in 17 games for Malmo in Sweden. Like that's the men's team. Like that's the big team. For their junior team, 27 points in 32 games. Like, okay, all right. And also 53 penalty minutes. Okay, so he doesn't take any crap. That's kind of the guy you want to have to be part of this mix that they've got right now.
Right.
A bigger guy, not necessarily plays with an edge, but just a guy who won't take any shit, and can be physical, can do these things, and also has a high end skill ability. So that's them identifying something that down the road that could be useful for them. That we're talking maybe 3 years, 2-3 years away, because he's going to play one more year in Sweden, then he's probably coming over, then he's probably going to play in Roch. He'll play a year there, and then it's game on. Let's see what happens from there. But he makes a difference because he's different from Benson, he's different from Savoy, he's different from Roseanne, he's even different from Kulik. Like, and Kulik's not a small guy. Like, Kulik's 6 feet, but he's a brick shit house. Like,
Mhm.
he's just a strong. He was NHL sized last year already. So, but with Wahlberg, like, he's actually big. Like, he's anybody who's taller than me, it's like, okay, you're big. Like, I'm 6'1", 6'2", and like, I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, buddy, all right. And who knows? Maybe he gets an inch or two taller. Who knows? Like, maybe by the time he shows up in North America, he's 6'5".
Yeah.
I mean, Tage Thompson went from 6 foot to 6'7" in like 2 years. So things like that can happen. But there's a lot of skill there, and he's gonna play like the World Juniors and stuff like that for Sweden. Like, you're gonna see a lot of them over the next couple of years, just in that scale. But yeah, I really like the pick. I think I'm very anxious to see how his development tracks, because I think they might have got a real good one there.
I love your point, and I agree wholeheartedly. Obviously, that as good as a guy like Savoy is or Zach Benson, you can't have 12 forwards just like them. You got
Right.
to have guys who bring different skill sets, different size to the table. So, an intriguing pick. Sounds on paper like this was a fun draft, and we'll see how things play out. Let's spend a couple minutes talking about two veteran defensemen. Now, it is zero surprise that the Sabres went out and picked up two defensemen. Nobody, if you follow this team at all, is the least bit surprised about that.
Right.
Maybe a little bit surprising that they did it via free agency and not a trade, because it was
Mhm.
widely speculated, a bunch of guys were potential trade candidates, but the Sabres went out and they signed 2 free agents, Connor Clifton, Eric Johnson. Let's start with Clifton. Tell people about him. And as you kind of weave in between these two, I remember talking to you, and most people would said the same thing, that priority number one was for them to find a defensive partner for Owen Power. One of these two guys is probably going to fit the bill. Let's start with Clifton. Tell us a little bit about this guy.
So he's it's a classic Sabres move, which I'm very mad at myself. I didn't pay attention to when looking at free agents. He played for Don Granato back in the U.S. development team days. So that right away should have been like, okay, they're gonna go for this guy. And if they don't go for him, that means Donnie doesn't like. Donnie's like, I don't think so. They ran out and got him right away. This guy's gonna be a fan favorite.
Yeah. Why?
He hits a lot.
Yeah.
He's a physical player, and he's not just like a guy that just hits people to hit people. Like, Risto was kind of good for doing that stuff back in the day, where he'd go and make a hit and suddenly he's out of position and it's a 3-on-1. Whoops. Clifton doesn't do that stuff. He's very capable. He's a very good puck carrier. He can make that, the classic things you want to hear. He's a good puck carrier. He plays a, an up tempo game. And he can help start the rush with a good first pass. Those things like that checks every box, but also he likes to hammer guys all over the ice. He had, and I've been repeating this stat for like weeks now. He had 208 hits last season, which was 23rd in the NHL, which is like, you're like, big deal. Well, that's 102 hits more than Matthias Samuelsson had in Buffalo. Wow. And he was the Sabres team leader. Wow. Yeah. Matthias missed games with injury. So keep that in mind, but Clifton hits guys, and he things can get a little bit spicy when if he catches somebody the right way, because there's been a few Bruins games where I've seen where he just nailed somebody, and it's like, oh, here we go, time to get feisty. So I think eventually he'll end up being the guy with power. I don't know that he'll start with him. I also gut feeling, based on what Don was saying, we might see some interesting stuff with the defense pairs. He's got 10 guys to work with right now, so there's a million permutations that he could work with. But I think Clifton's eventually going to be the guy to play next to Power. I think, but I don't think he's going to start there right away. But you don't sign a guy for 3 years and think like, well, there's our third pair, number 6 defenseman. You don't sign guys like that for 3 years and 3 million plus a year. You just don't do that. So yeah, I firmly believe that Clifton's gonna win everybody over the first game that he plays in a Sabres uniform, because he's gonna nail somebody and the place is gonna go absolutely bonkers.
What about Johnson? Now, again, all alongside Clifton, and especially Johnson, it should be noted that beyond the on-ice talent that these guys will add to the roster, they're also winners. Yes. They've been on championship team. Eric Johnson, 2 years ago. So he knows what it's like. These guys know what it's like to be in the playoffs and play meaningful games in April. Something that most these Buffalo Sabres, unfortunately, have no freaking clue about at all. So that matters as well. But was Johnson a bit of a surprise? He was pretty open that he thought he would be returning to Colorado, and they decided that they wanted to move on. But he said he's singing all the right notes. He's happy to be here. He's excited about this organization. They're trending up. That's a very common theme around the league. Talk about him too.
He's another guy that makes me feel really old, that I've been in this business a long time, because I remember him getting drafted number 1 in 2006. He was the number 1 pick in that year's draft. I also remember the night he was traded at 1:00 in the morning from St. Louis to Colorado.
That's like 12 years ago or some shit.
Yeah. It was like 2010, maybe.
Yeah.
2011. Yeah, it was something like that. But I remember that very clear as day, because I think I was writing for NBC, and I was like, all right, time to wrap up tonight. Wait, what do you mean there's a trade? Oh, bullshit. No, why is there a trade this late at night? This is garbage. But I recall that pretty well. But he's been as steady as steady gets through his career. He helped, he's part of the Avs Cup winning team last year, 22. But he's had just such a solid career, like forever. which is weird to say forever in that kind of reference. But he's just been a really good, solid player, good in the room guy. Um, the exact kind of guy. Like it felt like such a when they announced it, I was like, I don't know about that, and I was like, wait a minute, no, I get it. And Kevin Adams kind of confirmed that because I remember asking him the other day about, you had a Pozo, you have Gergensons, and like they're great for the room, they're great for everybody, but they're forwards. Eric Johnson's a defenseman, and like he can lend more of that insight to the young defensemen on the team. Pozo and Zemgus can do lots of things, but they can't talk about playing the defense position. They can't talk about like the intricacies and little things like that. Like they just don't know that stuff as well. Johnson can. And he's a guy that's had the pressure of being a number one pick. He's had that spotlight on him, for a long time. He's kind of gotten out of the spotlight over the years as he's gotten older, but he knows what it's like, and that's important for Power and Darlene, honestly. I mean, they're both number one picks as well. So like, he gets it, he understands it, and he just, like I said, he just plays a solid game. He was pretty good at the PK with Colorado, as was Clifton. So, the horrible PK the Sabres had last year, at least we're going to get a little bit of help there. So that's good.
Sure. That's going to matter. Yeah.
Oh, you could argue that it cost them the playoff spot last season. That's a whole other discussion though. But he's just it was such a smart decision, or such an obvious decision, that I'm kicking myself I didn't pick it out, because I didn't think he was leaving Colorado either. So because he'd been there forever. Why would you, there's no reason to leave, but it was, he's captain of the team, the whole thing. And they're just kind of like, all right, man, bye. See ya. Like he was captain for years until it was Landeskog took over and all that stuff. But like, yeah, it's an interesting pickup. And I know people are like, well, how's it going to help? I'm like, he's going to help. He can still play. It's not like he's coming in to just be the old wily vet.
Yeah. Now, look, man, a lot of exciting things going on with the Sabres. Obviously, some high draft picks to be excited about. Some, you see guys like Kulik. You see a lot of these young guys looking good. They add veteran defensemen to this roster, so there's plenty to be excited about. The one negative that's going on right now with the Sabres, and it's a very unfortunate accident, was Jack Quinn. Hurt his Achilles. He's going to be out very likely anyway until probably the end of December. The Sabres, Joe, again, going out and adding defensemen, not a surprise. Maybe not adding a forward, maybe a little bit of a surprise, maybe a little bit more, because Quinn is probably going to be out for at least a couple months. There's not much to say about the injury. It sucks. He's a young ascending player. I mean, really, it is what it is. It's an unfortunate thing that happens in sports.
Yep.
Olofsson has not been traded. That might be a surprise right now. You still think that's going to happen? And when it comes to Quinn's roster spot right now, do you think that, I'm sure there were a couple of guys they were interested in maybe and didn't pan out, but it certainly appears anyway right now that maybe it's Kulik, maybe it's Savoy, maybe someone just goes into that spot. Like Quinn's absence, if there is a silver lining, and no one's going to go and play as well probably as he did last year. That's not what I'm saying, but if there's a silver lining, it's an opportunity maybe for one of these young kids to step up into that role. Do you think that's how it plays out? Do you think they get a veteran? And what's going on with Olofsson?
Yeah, I'll start with Olofsson. I don't think I was pretty convinced they were going to trade him at the draft. And then the news about Quinn came out, and I'm like, well, now they're not trading him, because you're talking about a guy who I think, when people were going to ask me who was going to break out for Buffalo this season, Quinn was going to be my pick running away. I was saying this 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Quinn's my guy to break out, next season. I was thinking like he was going to have a Cousins kind of year and, really bust out on the scene, and people would be like, oh, damn. Okay. Because all the underlying numbers are great with him, the whole thing. And it's really unfortunate. It's like second surgery he's had in 3 years. Like he had a sports hernia a couple of years back. So it's such a bummer, because the guy works his ass off. He's a really hard worker. But with Olofsson, I was pretty convinced he was gonna be part of some deal, but moving the money around has been really hard. for everybody to do. Like, and I know it's usually a casual excuse for teams to do nothing. I don't know that that was really the case here because I love Victor, but man, the 5-on-5 numbers were rough.
Yeah.
Basically, everybody he was on the ice with got worse when he was out there, and I hate seeing stuff like that. I hate saying it, and I mean numbers are right there. Yes, 26 goals, 28 goals, whatever it was. That's great, but if it's coming at a detriment, it reminds me of the guy in the Knicks who scores a ton of points, but he couldn't defend.
Julius Randle?
Yes. He
Oh,
used to
trust
be
me.
in New Orleans. I remember because he scored a ton of points. He couldn't defend you or me on the ball.
No, he's terrible. Oh, don't get me started on Julius
Yeah,
Randle, man. I'm
right.
still mad about that. And
So,
him.
I mean, Victor is, but like, I mean, he was in such a funk all last year, and then late in the season, he's getting scratched. Like they were in a push for the playoffs, and he's getting scratched. Like that's you're going to trade a guy, boy, that's as low as the value's going to get. You can just distract everybody and be like, no, 20 goals. He can do it. Like he'll help you out. He's great at the power play. Yes, true. But what's he going to do the rest of the time? And I think that's where that's at right now. But he's got a lot of pride. And now his spot was up for grabs in camp as far as I was concerned. But now Quinn's spot is open as well. So now there's a chance for him to step up and take that spot if he shows that he's improved his two-way game and that he can work better at 5-on-5. Otherwise, it's open season for everybody. Savoy, Rosane, Kulik, all these guys are going to be in the mix for it. If there is a free agent to go after, for me, it's Tomas Tatar. Full admission, he was on my Selke ballot as one of the best defensive forwards last year. He scored 20 goals, I think, last year. Basically the exact opposite of Victor. Everybody that was on the ice with Tatar had better numbers with him than without. Like he was out there with them, everybody was better with him. As soon as he was not with them, they did not have as good of numbers. So that tells me a lot. It tells me that he's a pretty good guy to have out there, and he can help it work. But he probably wants a longer term deal. He probably wants something that, Buffalo is no longer a cap floor team. I don't know if you've looked at Cap Friendly lately. They are not on the floor anymore. They are very much near the ceiling. And that's going to be that way for the foreseeable future. So, they're not in the taking contracts off people's hands business anymore. But it's so tough because again, I like the guy, but man, the numbers just scream. You can't put him out there. You can't give him the big minutes that you need for a guy that can score goals, because if he's dragging everybody else down, boy, it's hard. But it's open season for both of those spots in the wing.
Do you think it gets to a point with a player, we're talking Olofsson here, but maybe just a player generally speaking, where you are what you are at some point. Like you can only say, well, he can improve on being better in 5-on-5 for so long, or this guy can improve on the penalty kill. You can only say that for so long. At some point, you are what you are. Like, do you feel like we're at that point with Olofsson right now? Like he might go out, he might get you, buckets of goals over a short period of time. Then he disappears for a month. He's going to struggle 5-on-5. Do you think that that's just who he is as a player at this point?
You can live with streakiness like that.
Sure.
If you're able to score often enough at 5-on-5 and and just be a really solid 5-on-5 possession player. Like you can go through streaks like that. Jeff Skinner's one of them. Like Skinner goes through lulls sometimes where you're just kind of like, this guy hasn't scored in a while. Then suddenly he's got 10 goals in 12 games. And you're like, oh shit, there he is. Okay. That's the guy. When you're not bringing that other part of your game, it's tough. It's really hard. And like Victor's 27 now.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Is he
locked
in?
What he is.
That's what he is. This is what he is at this point, right? You think like he's not going to change much. You're not going to see a completely different player. Let's just say they don't trade him, and let's say he's in the lineup to begin the season. You're not really going to see much of what you've differently than what you've seen from him over the last whatever amount of years at this point, right?
Yeah. And I think the thought is that 2 years ago, you saw a version of Victor that was stronger at that part of the game. Like he was, doing a lot of work towards the front of the net, doing a lot of, little things where it's like, okay, the 5-on-5 issues weren't quite as glaring. Last season they stuck out pretty bad. So I think there's the thought that they've seen the good version of him, that like, let's get him back to that point, because then we've got a 25 guys capable of scoring 25 to 30 goals, who is helping everybody produce, who is getting it done, because that's way better than introducing somebody who might take a lot of time to get ready, or might not be ready for the NHL. Like they might look ready in camp, but you get them, you get them into the NHL, and you're going for a few games, and it's like, he ain't ready. Like we got to send him back down. Like you want to try to avoid something like that, but it's asking a lot. And listen, he's going to get a chance to prove it. 100%. Now they could prove me wrong and trade him tomorrow. Right. They could just be like, nope, we're done. See ya. But as it stands right now, like they're going to give him an honest chance, because I think they feel like he's earned that. And I don't disagree with that. I know he's the fans' pariah right now. Everybody wants him. They wanted him gone, I think last January, almost, maybe. But yeah, it's tough. It is tough to teach an old dog new tricks, but some guys learn. So like Kyle Opozo went from being like a power forward scoring winger to being a guy who hammers people in forechecks, that plays that gets in the corners, gets dirty, the classic lunch pail type of play. And then, last season he scored 20 goals and was like, all right, yeah, put him on the power play. You can get stuff done there too. And some guys adapt. Some guys can learn to adapt their games to do something new. But if you're trying to keep stuff in a square peg in a round hole, you're going to end up doing it probably back in Sweden or in the AHL or somewhere you don't want to be instead of the NHL.
Let's switch gears here for a minute before we wrap up. In fact, let's switch sports entirely. It needs to be said again. It's been a minute since you've been on the show, so some people might be new to the show and might not know Joe. While he covers the Buffalo Sabres and while he lives in this great city of ours here in Buffalo, Joe's not a Buffalo sports fan. Okay, we've always referred to Joe. Well, obviously, you cover the Sabres. You're not a fan of nobody. That's your job. When it comes to football, you're a Buffalo Bills watcher. We say that all the time on this show. You're not a Bills fan. So one of the reasons why I always like talking to you about Bills-related stuff is because I know I'm going to get an objective, unbiased opinion. It's not going to be slanted at all because you're a fan of the team. Anyway, it's been, and you've just been sitting back. I'm sure you've been seeing some of it. Training camp's coming soon. Thank God training camp is coming soon.
Yes.
Well, hold on.
2 weeks away, isn't it?
It is.
Really
it's at the end of July. Let me walk that back a little bit, though, real quick here. Quick little left turn. I like training camp, but then, as you know, I'm a summer guy, whereas you're more of a fall guy. I also hate it because, to me, there's two things in Buffalo that tell me summer is almost fucking over. One is the Erie County Fair, and two is the start of Bills training camp. So I'm not that excited because that means these beautiful days are going to be going away before you know it. But anyway, it's cool from a football perspective. Thank God that training camp is coming, because for the Buffalo Bills, what a tumultuous offseason this has been. Well, maybe not. Some people think it is. Some people think it's a little bit par for the course. But man, you got
not with the roster.
Yeah. I want to get your opinion as a whole on I guess we'll call drama this offseason. Man, you got Josh Allen, without digging into his personal life too much. Everybody knows him and his girl broke up at an inopportune time. Let's just say things went down unless you're at an inopportune time. Josh is single. Josh has taken that step from a celebrity in Buffalo. Like there's a lot of Bills and Sabres players who might make commercials for like West Herb 4. Josh is Hollywood Josh Allen now. He's a star on a level way beyond just this region.
There's Steve Tasker and then there's Josh Allen now.
Yes, great analogy. 100%. Yes, he's past Steve Tasker mode. He's on his own level right now. He's dating Haley Steinfeld, a well-known Hollywood actress. Anyway, again, I don't want to dig too much into his personal life. My point was this. He's had a lot going on. He has said a lot. He was on a podcast not long ago, and he said he said the last 2 years, he really hasn't done much in the offseason. He lets his body rest and relax, and that's what works for him. Not going to question what works for him and his body. He knows better than anyone else. But anyway, so you got Josh again, Hollywood Josh. I hate saying that word, but it's true. That's kind of what he's been this offseason. Of course, you got Stephon Diggs on the field, one of the very best players in the NFL. Been with this team for 3 years, and he has rewritten the Bills' receiving record book in 3 years. Quite frankly, or quite literally, the best 3 seasons in the history of the franchise have all come from Diggs. Diggs was pissed off over that Cincinnati playoff game last year. Very well known. We saw the images on the sideline with him raising his arms. What he said, well, that's not been reported. And I guess who cares at this point? Anyway, no OTAs. Those are voluntary. Who gives a shit? But he's not on the field for day one in minicamp. We find out that he was in town, had meetings. They didn't go well. Sean McDermott apparently told him to go home that day. Sean McDermott makes matters way worse. Fumbles the ball, quite frankly. I talked to Tyler Dunn and Tim Graham about this. They say the same thing too. Sean really screwed up that first day of that presser, saying that he was very concerned twice instead of just saying he made it a bigger story. Now, fans, of course, who like to blame the media for everything. They blame it on the media. The media is creating this narrative, where it was the head coach who word for word was making it into the story. Stephon's back since then, still has not spoken to the media at all. We still don't know what he's even pissed off about. It's made for fun content. It's made for fun speculation, but we don't know. Anyway, you got the Stephon Diggs drama. Who's he mad at? What's going on? How's he going to be in camp? You got Von Miller, who the hell who knows when he's going to be back from his ACL? He thinks he's already back. I think the Bills are going to take it slow. Again, Josh Allen, all the shit going on off the field with him, most of it good. Some of it maybe not quite as good. But anyway, what an tumultuous, like I said, offseason for the Bills. Cam did get here soon enough. What's your take on what's going on with the Bills? And if you were a Bills fan, does all this shit that I've just talked about, would it concern you? Or are you the mindset, you know what, once football starts, everything's going to be fine and then they'll work their shit out and you wouldn't be worried?
There's a lot there.
I just went on a rant. I wouldn't shut the fuck up.
No, I understand. I understand completely. Watching some of this stuff from the outside, like,
right.
The Diggs thing. Let me start there. The stuff about OTAs, you know how I feel about OTAs and like the attention that gets paid to them. Like,
right.
It's like the pre-training camp. Who gives a flying shit, dude? That's for like the draft guys. Get them integrated, get them involved. Like that should be development camp. You don't need to bring everybody in for like, a week to hang out and run through like, and just, do walkthroughs and pads and whatever. Like, no, man. Like I get it. Like you got to make sure everybody's studying the playbook and staying. It's like, oh, I get it because coaches inherently don't trust players in the offseason. They're just kind of like you're always left to your own devices and they just want people to do their job. But man, I don't care, dude. Diggs shows up every season. Like he's in shape. He's ready to go. He's ready to play. That's it. Like
he's in shape now. I see his Instagram. Yeah.
Right. Like he was at the DeMar Hamlin softball thing down in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah, he looks fantastic. Yeah.
Looks good. Like, I don't need him to do walkthroughs and pads, man. Like he knows the playbook. He knows where the patterns are. He knows the second that Allen rolls out, I gotta find a way to get open either deep or underneath for him.
Let me ask you this, Joe. You're a media guy, all right? You cover the Sabres. Let's pretend you cover the Bills though instead of the Sabres. If you're a media guy, would you have a gripe against him because he has not spoken yet about any of this and it's been months? If you're a media guy who covers the Bills, or do you feel like it's not really a story, or you just don't give a shit right now? Like, what would be your take if you were covering this team?
I'd be really frustrated that he doesn't talk like ever.
Sure.
Like that would bother me because it's like there's stories to tell. I don't. And maybe maybe this doesn't help me blend in well with a lot of like the more old school minds on stuff. But I'm just kind of like, I don't need to badger a guy about being available, but like, you got to talk sometimes. Like it's part of the job.
And he's a captain.
I get it. Right. And he's right. So from that perspective, I got to be like, dude, just answer some questions. Like give Marshawn Lynch answers if you want to, like just do whatever. Like, I mean, just you have to at least like do the part, even if you just totally mail it in and just answer like the worst ways possible, like just the most boring, you know, oatmeal style friggin' comment. Whatever, man, just talk. He has stories to tell. Like there's stories to tell about him, which I'm positive everybody on that beat wants to tell, tell like the
Mhm.
cool stories about Stephon Diggs because like he's got there's a cool story. Like his brother's a great defensive back, like the whole thing, like everything's cool. Like it's cool, it's fun. Like this is the kind of stuff you want to see talked about, written about, but he ain't having it. So, whatever. Like I think we've come to expect this with receivers just in general in the NFL. Like they're just a different breed, man. Like they just they just kind of do whatever. Them and defensive backs, well, cornerbacks specifically, like they're just kind of like their own. Like they're just kind of like whatever, man. Like they're like goalies in hockey. They're just kind of weird. They're gonna do whatever and just okay, just don't do anything to upset them. It's like that kind of thing. Just it's the Keyshawn just throw me the damn ball thing, but not with Keyshawn yelling, screaming in a camera about it. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be like pounding my chest, frothing at the mouth, mad that he hasn't talked about anything. But like, I'd be like, dude, come on, just
You wouldn't
stop.
be writing scathing columns at this point, but you would be annoyed that
No,
he's
I'm
not
not
talking.
that type. Like, listen. There are many times in the past where I could have just like opened up both barrels on somebody and just decided to be like, screw it, man. I don't care. I don't care what the blowback is. I just don't. Sometimes with stuff like that, I look at it as like taking a pot shot. I ain't here for pot shots. Like that's not
Right.
how I operate. Some people do. And like, I mean, as long as you're doing it from a not from a dishonest perspective, like if you want to like just rip on a guy for not doing like, hey, he's not doing like the team, the basic things that a team captain should be doing, blah, blah, blah. Like just do your job. Okay. All right, great. Like that, you can take that shot. But I don't know. So it's not really something that I look to do just to stir it up like that. So
Right.
I'll never be a sports talk host on radio. I just stirring stuff up for no good reason just to get people screaming at me. Like, dude, I hate getting yelled at. Like, I just get out of my face with this stuff. Just like, please, just let me live my life. But yeah, like, but I mean, just from the basic media perspective, yeah, I'd be upset that he doesn't talk at all. But like, I know there's been lots of guys that have come through Buffalo in the past that just either found ways to avoid or just flat out didn't like to talk. I mean, for the handful of years I was doing Bills games for AP, I remember one time we tried to talk to Sammy Watkins after a game, and Sammy was like, "I'll be right back. I gotta shower." Like, okay, so we're standing in front of his locker waiting for him. And somebody comes out and starts collecting his stuff. We're like, he already left. Okay, well,
Mm.
all right, see you later, bud. But it's things like that. Like Khalil Mack tried to sneak out when he came in here with Oakland or Chicago, I forget. I think it was with Oakland. Like he tried to like sneak out and like he got caught before he even got out of the room. I was like, dude, you got to talk. So had a big scrum like right at the entrance of the locker room, which nobody likes. Nobody likes that. The players hate that stuff. But like, he just tried to get out of Buffalo without talking to anybody. And it was like, I don't know. Sometimes you just got to do the thing, man.
Let me ask you one more question here. Is it fair to say that if you don't count injuries, look, man, injuries will take down any team in any sport,
Right.
if they could cripple you. Simple as that. Josh goes down, that's a wrap.
Mhm.
The Bills are done. You can say that with pretty much 32 other teams. Pat Mahomes, pretty much there's a player on every team. You're not going to win if this guy goes down, right? Not counting injuries. Is it fair to say that if you're a Bills fan and you care about this team, that your biggest concern could be if Stephon Diggs, if this is more than what we're hoping it is,
Mhm.
let's just say, for the sake of this question, that whatever is going on philosophy wise or something between Stephon and whether it's the head coach, assistant coaches, whatever it may be, that there's scars that ain't going to heal. And Stephon becomes really disenfranchised here and he won't say, or maybe at some point he does publicly ask for a trade, or he's just, even if he doesn't, let's just say he's just not happy. He's not himself here. I feel like that's the one non-injury thing more than anything else that could really pull this team down, because I don't think the Bills could win a Super Bowl without Stephon Diggs being who Stephon Diggs is, because I don't think they have enough pass catchers beyond him that are
Mhm.
good enough. Now, maybe if they went out and they signed DeAndre Hopkins, highly improbable, then maybe they could lose Stephon. But whether it's Stephon getting hurt or whether it's just him completely unhappy and miserable being there, whether he's vocal about it or he keeps it to himself, like, is it fair to say that that would be your biggest non-injury concern with this team this year?
It's gonna stick in my mind. It would stick in my mind until it was proven that it's not gonna be a thing.
Yeah,
And if maybe it never gets proven to be like, maybe it's just kind of something that's always kind of hanging in the air. Like, the first time Allen misses him, for some, a pass that he's wide open for, and like it turns into like, they don't get a first down out of the play and they got to punt it away or do it, something happens. So any kind of situation like that, it's gonna be zeroed in on immediately. Like
mhm,
any time that there's a play like that, and that's one where it's kind of on the media, but also like that's what the situation is too.
yeah,
Like if it becomes a thing like that, because everybody's gonna have their eyes out for it. They're just being like, well, let's see what happens. Because Lord knows, I remember not all that long ago, there were a lot of games where they just never threw to Diggs for whatever reason. Like he just didn't get the targets. It was either going to Knox or to Beasley or maybe somebody out of the backfield, whatever. It was just Diggs wasn't getting like the
right,
same kind of targets. And it's like, dude, that's your number one receiver. Like that's
yeah.
the guy you throw to all the time. Like I know he's getting doubled, but like, dude, you got the arm to like thread it through, throw it through a keyhole, man. Like, come on.
Well,
But
Stephon would agree with you, that's for sure.
but I mean, it would be in the back of my mind, I think, probably all season because
Yeah,
the blow up on the sideline at this during the Cincinnati game, whatever was going on there, I think we've all heard enough theories as to what might have been going on there, but whatever was happening there, that to me is kind of like, oh, somebody stepped up to the quarterback and was kind of like, do your damn job, man. Like, I mean, if anybody's going to do it on the team, it's either going to be the coach or or the guy that's your top wideout. Like that's the guy that's got to get you focused, like to get you
yeah,
back on the page. Like those are the people that I would allow the leeway to have a word, like, to be able to scream at the quarterback is either of those positions. Like whoever your main guy is that helps you win games, that guy can just be like, dude, get your shit together. Let's go. You can do that all you want because that's probably also what your job is too.
yeah, yeah,
Like that's just the way it is. But everybody's gonna be keeping an eye out for this stuff. Like every time like he's not thrown to in a big situation or or they come up short in a big moment or anything like that, it's gonna get hyper fixated on and it's gonna be annoying. It's gonna be annoying if there's nothing to it. If there is something to it though, then it's absolutely front page news.
yeah, for sure, man. It's I think it's probably the number one story, not just for training camp, but early in the regular season. If this team
Mhm.
struggles a little bit out of the gate, how is that relationship between Stephon and Josh or Stephon and the coaching staff? I think it's probably again minus injuries the number one thing to worry about. I want to before we get out of here, we're gonna get out of here in like 3 minutes, but a choose one segment. I like to do this choose one segment. It's pretty simple. I'm asking 4 questions, a little bit of fun here at the end.
Yeah.
Pick one. Pretty simple. I'm going to give you 2 choices. Well, actually, in 3 of these, I'm going to give you 2 choices and you pick one. And then I guess the last one is just a straight up question. But just a little segment I like to end. I call it choose one. So we're taping this on Monday. In fact, maybe an hour or so before WWE Raw is actually in Buffalo tonight. Let me ask you this. What type of match do you prefer at this point? And again, this is choose one. The Royal Rumble match, and not anyone specifically. I'm just talking about a
Mhm.
general match. Would you rather be in the crowd and watch a Royal Rumble match or a Money in the Bank ladder match? Pick one.
Um,
Choose one.
in a vacuum sense, it's the Royal Rumble.
Yeah,
Um, like for me, there's nothing beats the Royal Rumble. Royal Rumble is
agreed.
the coolest thing. I mean, most of the competitors that are going to be in it. There's always some surprises. Sometimes they sneak somebody new in there. I
Sure.
remember a few years back when when
Edge.
AJ Styles showed up for the first
Yeah.
time, was in the
AJ.
Rumble, and I'd been, everybody had been hearing that for weeks and weeks and weeks. They're like, dude, he's coming, he's coming. When's he gonna show up? And like, that's a dude I've been watching forever, like doing,
Yeah.
indie stuff, whatever. So like when that music, like his theme song hit, and everybody's like, what the hell's that? And then he comes out, I'm like, yes, let's go. Like It's like those kinds of moments are so good. Um, Money in the Bank ladder match is cool. It's it's still a ladder match to me though. Like I get it, like Money in the Bank's a cool thing to like pocket forever, for the whole year to try to get the title. That's neat. I don't know, man. It ain't the Rumble. Everything's goofy now because the Rumble was supposed to get you like that earned you the time to go to WrestleMania or got you a title shot immediately.
Mhm.
I know stuff's kind of played out now, but like it's still the coolest thing
I
going
agree.
because it's like a carnival, really. It's
Yeah,
like a
no, it
circus
is.
because it's just every 90 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever the hell it is. I mean, the clock's always fuzzy time with the Rumble,
It
but yeah, I love it. I mean, back in the day, my buddies and I we had a drinking game for the Rumble, which
oh,
you'd pick names out of the hat, and you'd have to sip, drink. I don't know I think they did shots or something. I don't know. It was reckless, whatever it was. But somebody had Kane the year he threw out 11 guys, and they were in a bad way. They were in a real bad way that year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Money in the Bank ladder match is actually more exciting in terms there'll be a couple of wow spots like holy shit, and some
Yeah.
Royal Rumble matches turn out to be duds. But still, the anticipation when you don't know who's coming out until someone comes out, I would go for it for the same reason. Funny you say Carnival. More on that in a second. All right, All Star game. Would you rather choose one All Star game, baseball or hockey? Hockey today, 3-on-3 style.
I guess baseball. The baseball All-Star game got ruined for me when Bud Selig just kind of shrugged his shoulders and was kind of like, I don't know what to do. Everybody's out of pitchers. Like, jackass. Like, just I hated that stuff. And then they made it the game counts. Like, it just totally soiled everything about the baseball All-Star game. It's still the
Yeah.
coolest event. For me, because it's just guys from both leagues. It's great. Like, you just get to see all these top guys. But like even now, like it's sanitized with like they have like American and National League uniforms now. Just let the guys wear their friggin' team uniforms like they always did. Like some of these teams have like 5 different uniforms to wear.
Yeah,
Don't you want to sell more of them?
I
Like
agree.
just from a marketing sense, like you want to sell more. Like you see Otani wearing some like random third jersey that you've hardly ever seen. Like, whoa, that'd be cool to have. I want to get that. Duh. Like nobody wants to buy an all-star jersey. Get lost.
I'm with you, man. I would say baseball too. It's not what it used to be, but I kind of reflect on being a kid and being young, and
Yeah.
it was my favorite thing. I couldn't wait for the All-Star game. I used to vote every year, send in the ballot. It would be so much fun to do. It was one of
See,
my favorite things.
the tough part is like the hockey one. I should be like pumping the tires for because it's going to be in Toronto next year.
Yeah.
Which I already know I'm going to be going up there for that one, so that's cool as hell. Like last time I was at an All Star game was in Raleigh, North Carolina, back in 2011, I think it was,
Yeah.
and that was really fun to do as just to be there for that whole thing. But they've tinkered with it so much and done so many different things with it. It's just kind of like bleh.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan anymore either, but I also would say baseball. All right, two more here. Major League Baseball home run derby or NBA slam dunk contest.
Mm,
This one was tough for me.
yeah. I know both are really cartoony now.
They are.
Like, aren't the baseballs that they use, aren't they like totally different from like game balls? Like they're not quite the
I
same.
think so. I think they're slightly altered. I think so.
Right. So I'm just kind of like whatever. I mean, it's cool as hell. You know what? I think I got to go home run derby because the dunk
Mm,
contest has been kind of whatever in recent years. I know the one this past year was really good,
yeah,
but there's
but
a
it's rare when you see a great one now.
right. It's just a giant swath of time where I have no idea who won. B, like I just didn't care about it. Like just like there was 4 or 5 guys who are like these are the best dunkers. I'm like cool, but I grew up watching Dominique Wilkins and Michael Jordan have
Yeah,
like battles. Like there are 2 of the best scorers in the
yeah.
league. Like doing crazy. I mean, it's not crazy looking now, but like doing stuff that you're like, oh man,
It was
this
at the time.
rules. It was incredible to watch. Like
Sure, I'm with you.
you
I
know.
agree.
I mean,
Um,
like when guys like LeBron and Kobe were just like they do it one year and it's like, oh wow, that's so cool. And they're like, I'm not gonna do it again. Why? Why not? Like, come
I,
on, dude.
I'm with you. They're both cartoonish. You made a great point. I probably would lean baseball too. I would have no disrespect to the basketball slam dunk contest and some of the guys who do some really cool shit, but most of these guys are bench guys or guys that the casual fan hasn't even heard of. You know, the guy who just won it isn't even in the NBA.
Right.
You know, so I mean,
right.
baseball,
man.
At least baseball, for the most part, most of the big names will do the home run derby. So that alone is exciting. And sometimes a guy will just get in a groove and start crushing them. So I would give the edge to baseball as well.
It's just, man, like I remember like when D Brown won it and Cedric Ceballos won it. Like Ceballos did it with like the blindfold.
Yeah,
couldn't see the hoop. All right, buddy. But like D Brown doing I guess he was the first guy to do a dab, but also pumping up the shoes, the whole thing. Like that was cool. But like you look at the other guys that were in that competition, there were some star players in that just didn't. I mean, they didn't cut it, or like they just didn't do something as cool enough to be able to win it. Like, but now it's you have 4 or 5 guys where I'm like, that guy like the 10th man on that team's bench. Like, what the hell's going on here?
And not even just that. Back in the day with the slam dunk contest, if you screwed up, you were done. Where now they do it with a clock. You could do the same dunk 5 times in a row. You could screw up the first 4 times. You got the clock. You got enough time to do it right, and they still will score it as if it was your first attempt at a dunk. Which that part is kind of stupid.
I don't hate that part, actually. I much rather see a guy get judged for something that he actually makes than you bricked it. Oh, well, buddy.
Right.
Later.
Yeah. Fair point. All right. Last one here. You mentioned Carnival earlier. It's Carnival season, Lawn Fate season. We talked earlier in the show. You were at Taste of Buffalo this weekend. I was at Queen Abin Lawn Fate. What is your favorite Carnival food? Like if you go, I don't care if it's the Erie County Fair, Taste of Buffalo, whatever it may be, whether it's a carnival, some kind of exhibition, somewhere where you go where there's a shitload of food, something that you got to have, whether it's a dish, whether it's a dessert, something that like if you go to the Erie County Fair, for an example, you don't want to leave without getting this. So your favorite carnival food?
I think you got to get a funnel cake, right? Like you can smell those things like a mile away from the fair. Like you can just smell those like fried dough, funnel cake, whatever it is. They're basically the same thing, aren't they?
Yeah.
Either way, like who cares about healthy? Like nothing's healthy you eat at the fair. Everything will kill you if you eat a ton of it.
Exactly.
But I don't know, man. Like you can smell the fried dough and the funnel cakes getting made from a mile away, and like that's what hooks me every time. Where I'm like, all right, I gotta have one. Fine, just give me one. Like I'll have it. But then you have like 2 bites, and you're like, yeah, that hits the spot because it's just the right amount of greasy. And it's just it's kind of crunchy, kind of soft, kind of greasy. Like it's everything about it is bad, but it's so good.
Yeah, mine. I'm gonna go with a cannoli. Like yours too, but I go with a cannoli. I mean, that's something I don't know if I mean to.
I didn't know they did cannolis at the fair. Really?
Oh yeah, they definitely do.
I also haven't been to a fair in like 25 years. So,
well, you got some great way to end the show because, like we talked about, you've been really busy with hockey, but you got a little bit of downtime. This is the year where you go check out the Erie County Fair and go.
Might be.
Go walking around there and all.
As long as it's not 100 degrees out, then. Yeah.
All right, that is going to do it for this episode. By the way, tomorrow's show, I'm going to have Anthony Marino from Buffalo Rumblings. Thursday, going to be live from Imperial. Buffalo Sabres pregame, postgame host on MSG. Brian Duff is going to be with me. We're doing that show live, of course. Awesome. If you haven't done so already, make sure you go to Noted Hockey. Subscribe, $5 a month, man. Like I say all the time, you can't go wrong with that. Joe does great work. Follow him on Twitter at Joe Yerdon. Doesn't get into it with fans quite as much as he used to, which is a little disappointing to me. I used to like when you go at fans more, but you kind of been a little bit, well, maybe they've just been nicer to you lately. I don't know. I kind of like when you go at them, though. It brings fun for me. But
listen, the older I get, the less I want to fight with people. Like the more I'm just kind of like, just be cool. Everybody relax. I know some people get way more crotchety. Like I'll bitch and complain just the same, but like, no, please just be cool.
All right, guys, I will talk to you. Like I said, I'll be back. Brand new episode. Anthony Marino joins me from Buffalo Rumblings tomorrow. Talk to you soon.